Good morning. I'm Dr. Russell Roth, and I've been asked by the ACFE to present some insights into the long COVID or chronic COVID that people are experiencing after having a COVID infection. I in no ways give myself out to be an expert on treating of COVID. It's not my field. I'm an anesthesiologist originally. So this is not about COVID infection at all. And what to do about it, we'll come to that later on. But in 2019, I gave a presentation at the ACFE conference on personal energy management. And I hope some of you have now become rocket-powered with rocket fuel and managing your energy better and more efficiently. But then later in 2019, the COVID pandemic struck. And in 2020, the pandemic continued and worsened. And in April of 2020, I wrote a post for Facebook on long COVID, on the subject of long COVID or chronic COVID or the effects of COVID post-infection. However, the 𝐥𝐸𝐈 at Facebook took it down because they felt I was inciting fear amongst people and ungrounded facts. However, this year, suddenly in 2021, the pandemic has continued and worsened, but now long COVID or chronic COVID is a thing. It is now an accepted complication of COVID. And there's a lot more known about it than there was in those days. There's much information in the medical journals. People are doing a lot of research on it, and the long COVID that I wrote about in 2020 has now become a focus of attention. So I hope the 𝐥𝐸𝐈 at Facebook have a little bit of egg on their face. So this talk is about long COVID or chronic COVID or post-COVID syndrome, the implications and solutions, possible solutions to it. But unfortunately, COVID has become like a religion. Well, let's look at religions. Everyone knows that they have the truth. But currently there's no proof that anyone is right as far as religion is concerned. But people, super religious people, are very often not inclined to entertain alternative ideas. And you'll not change their minds. And you very seldom hear of people changing religion, because once he's made up his mind that this is what he believes is the truth, he'll stick to it. And they are prepared to persecute, marginalize, belittle, discriminate against those who differ. And many atrocities have been committed in the name of religion, whatever religion. And for these reasons, I never get involved in religious discussions. It's just tiring and a waste of time. But COVID has become like a religion now, because there's no proof yet that any one treatment really works and that can cure COVID or even absolutely prevent COVID. And everyone knows that they have the truth, be it to whatever recipe they are following. This is the thing that works. And if you don't follow it, then you've got a problem. And so it's very much like religion. We have the truth. We can't prove that it's right, but we think it is, and it seems to be, and we're not prepared to accept any alternative ideas. And you'll not change their minds. I was speaking to a pharmaceutical company And they say when their reps go to see doctors, they say at the 9th visit, the doctor actually starts listening to what they're saying. And it takes 19 visits to the doctor to get them to change their mind, to try the new product, because everybody just believes that what they have is the right, and also it's a lot of hassle to change your ideas. And so, and as is happening, people of various persuasions, as far as COVID are concerned, are trying to enforce their views on other people, are marginalizing those who differ, who've got a different opinion, belittling them, discriminating against them, etc. And I think atrocities are still going to be committed. So this is why COVID has become like a religion, and I don't partake in a discussion about COVID for those reasons. For the same reasons, I never get involved in religious discussions. But long COVID, chronic COVID, is a different thing. And there is some consensus amongst the medical fraternity as to what it is, and that it does exist. We're not quite consensus on what causes it, but I'll show you now. So the question must arise, how did I know back in 2020, April, that this long COVID thing was coming? And when I wrote the thing for Facebook, they took it down because they didn't know anything about long COVID. So how did I know about it? I'm not clairvoyant. The point is, I knew about it because it's not new. This is not a new thing. It's also not specific to COVID. It's not something new that is unique to COVID. It's an old, well-known syndrome. It's not just specific to COVID. We shouldn't call it long COVID, because it's a long virus infection. And in fact, over the years, it's become known as post-viral syndrome. And even in my short life of medicine and treating patients, I've seen patients with post-viral syndrome following ordinary flu. And it's a post-viral syndrome, any virus, but usually more inclined to be the flu virus. Funny enough, the flu viruses, of which COVID is a member, tend to be more inclined to give us this prolonged effect afterwards. And so it's not unique to COVID. That's why I knew about it. It wasn't something new. Learned about it at university 40 years ago. There's a post-viral syndrome. So it's not new. In fact, Time magazine very recently placed an article with the title of "What Long Flu Sufferers of the 1918-1919 Flu Pandemic, the Spanish flu, can tell us about long COVID today." Long flu sufferers in 1919, 100 years ago. What can they teach us today about it? Because they had it too. They had the long flu sufferers, just like we're having the long COVID sufferers. It's nothing new. It's an old story. But there's a correlation, or not, between the severity of the COVID disease that you have and the following severity of your long COVID. There are some differences of opinion there. That's not been quite sorted out. But what is it? What is long COVID? It's persistent, up to 6 months and maybe longer, of symptoms related to COVID infection. So you feel like you still have the COVID infection, even though you don't. Virus is long gone. And this continues far beyond the recovery from the virus. You've recovered from the virus is gone. And it happens in a significant number of people, maybe 10%, maybe 20%, around about there, depending on which articles you read. And it is due to a chronic and inappropriate interleukin-6 production. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you there with a big word you don't know anything about. We're going to come to interleukin-6 now. And it is characterized by mostly fatigue and malaise. In the articles, those that suffer from the COVID, the long COVID, half of them, just over half of them, battle fatigue. Then there is also, down here at the bottom there are the articles where this information was taken from. Dyspnea, that is shortness of breath. Myalgia, painful muscles. And now I smile at this one as that exercise intolerance. I think if you're suffering from fatigue and you get short of breath if you just get up out of your chair, and myalgia, I think you're going to be intolerant to exercise. So that one's pretty obvious. Also, sleep disturbances, brain fog. People can't think as clearly, their cognition is affected, and they battle with this foggy brain, they can't focus. And then fever. I know some people who say they're well over their COVID, but they wake up in the morning and their beds and their pajamas are wet and wring it out with sweat. So obviously in the night, they're getting a fever and they are sweating. So, and also headaches and vertigo are actually quite common as well. But because the majority of people who have this post-viral syndrome suffer from fatigue and malaise, this is where I get involved. I gave a talk in 2019 about the energy management and the fatigue that people are suffering from, and it comes almost down to the same thing as this fatigue, hence my interest in the chronic COVID. And so I'm going to limit myself in this talk to discussing and talking about the fatigue, because it's the most common one and there's no time to go through all of these disturbances in great detail. So why do we get long COVID? Well, there's two main reasons that have been postulated. One, the virus causes long-term tissue damage, actually permanent in some cases, damages the tissues, and this will give you problems and symptoms, possibly permanently. In your heart, chest pain, palpitations, tachycardia, fast pulse, low blood pressure, and fatigue. And then the pulmonary, your lung system, cough, shortness of breath. In the neurology, and these are the scary things, the neurology is the brain and the nerves. Problems with cognition, as I've said, problems with brain fog, headaches, depression, anxiety. And this is not just a person who's a little bit anxious about, these people get anxiety attacks that they have to be taken to a casualty department and treated there to get this anxiety attack under control. It's quite serious anxiety. Of course, insomnia and the well-known smell and taste problems and fatigue. So that's one of the causes of the long COVID, and luckily it's the minimum, where the patients have permanent long-term tissue damage by the virus, but it does occur. The other thing that reason we get the long COVID is that we have unresolved inflammation in our body. Whole body inflamed, Those of you that heard my talk in 2019 know I spoke about whole body inflammation. And this unresolved inflammation in the whole body could be due to viral persistence, but we've just agreed that this is after the virus. Low lymphocytes, the problems with your microbiome, that's your germ population in your colon, and still acute on chronic immunity. But look at the symptoms: fatigue, joint pain, chronic inflammation in the whole body, and sore muscles, sore joints, and fatigue. So because fatigue plays such a big role, I'm going to concentrate on that. And I think fatigue is caused by the unresolved inflammation, but I think everything, all these symptoms and signs are caused by chronic, whole body, inappropriate inflammation. Inappropriate, why? Because the virus that the inflammation was made against is gone. Why do you still have the inflammation? It's therefore inappropriate. So this is due to chronic, inappropriate interleukin-6 production. Remember I mentioned it earlier on. Interleukin-6. So what is interleukin-6? And this is important. When you get this, the cellular, I can't give you a lecture on immunity, but when you get to the cellular immunity part, the cells actually secrete and release certain substances, which we call cytokines. And these cytokines as a group, and there's quite a few of them, as a group cause the inflammation that you get from the virus. But the most important one, the head boy, the one that's right, that's involved in everything, whose name comes up constantly everywhere, has the name of interleukin-6, just the name of the cytokine. So these cytokines then give you an inflammatory reaction. This is when you have your infection. And if you have an overwhelming immune response, or an exaggerated immune response, and your body secretes too many cytokines, you'll get a massive inflammatory response, which with the overreaction, massive outpouring of the cytokines over the top, inappropriate inflammatory response, and this is the cytokine storm. Why cytokine storm? It's just these cytokines are just being released and overwhelming everything. It's like a hurricane coming. It's a cytokine hurricane and causing this inflammation especially in the lungs, because that's where you first get the virus. That's where it enters your body through your airways. And then you can end up with lung and lung tissue damage. However, when this is all past, sometimes your body continues, even though the virus is gone, some people's body continues to produce interleukin-6, even though the reason for secreting interleukin-6, that is the virus, is gone. And we have the cytokine being produced the whole time, interleukin-6. What does it do? It causes inflammation. But it's low grade, it's not as big as the inflammatory reaction you had when you had COVID, but you're producing interleukin-6 the whole time, and this is inappropriate and chronic, and it causes inflammation. And it's a whole body inflammation. The cytokines go to everywhere in the body, and they cause inflammation. Whole body, constant inflammation. Now, important thing I want to say about fatigue, that fatigue is not the same as being tired. Tired is that nice feeling you have after you've done a job hard, and you know that you have something to eat and drink now and a bit of sleep, and tomorrow we're back in there fighting. fatigue or fatigued people, these people, they have no energy. And they can never get tired because they've got no energy to get up and do something that will make them tired. They are just flat. They have got, this is the extreme case, of course, and you get degrees of it. That's the most important thing. So, you get, because these people are just got no energy and they just can't be productive. Whether working from home, working at the office, doesn't matter. They decrease productivity, and very importantly, their quality of life is really bad. And I've seen grown men have tears running down the face because of this. So, what happens? You see, in our cells we have these little organelles. This is a cell with a nucleus, and we have these little organelles in the cells, the mitochondria. Now the mitochondria are the things that produce energy. They take the food and the oxygen, combine it, and give the carbon dioxide, water, and energy. That's where we get our energy from. Now, in each cell, we have about 500 to 2,000 of these little mitochondria, little powerhouses. They're producing energy. And that energy is for that cell to use and for the whole organism to use to function. You see, the mitochondria take good quality fuel like food, glucose, combine it with oxygen and produce energy and carbon dioxide and water. Of course, it's not the perfectly efficient system, so there are going to be some byproducts some waste products from this process. Now, if your mitochondria are not producing energy, you will have no energy. And you will lie on the bed flat because you don't have energy. You've got to move. And when I'm talking about energy, I'm not talking about the Energizer bunny. I'm talking about just normal energy to function. If you don't have it, you can't function. If your mitochondria are not producing energy. So why are they not producing energy? Well, to produce energy, they've got to have good quality fuel, that's food. But let's not talk about the food and diet and stuff now. But your mitochondria are inefficient and they're small and scrawny because of the inflammation you have in your body. And you see, when your mitochondria don't produce energy, you have no energy. This is, and the animals in the northern hemisphere that hibernate, when the conditions get harsh, I mean it goes to -50 and there's no food, and under the harsh conditions their mitochondria, this is how they have adapted evolutionarily, their mitochondria shut down. They don't produce energy. And what can that animal do? Nothing. He finds a little place to curl up and lie for the winter. And then when the harsh conditions are past, his mitochondria start producing energy and he starts waking up. So hibernation is not a long sleep. It's a period when your mitochondria and your body produce no energy. And if your mitochondria in your body are few and small and not really very robust at producing energy, you're going to also battle with energy production. So the important part, as I've said, is that the hibernating animals' cells respond to a harsh environment and they shut down, they hunker down, for the winter. And this is what your body is trying to do. If you've got post-COVID, your body is trying to hibernate. Because, as I've said, in response to a harsh environment, the mitochondria shut down. So what is your harsh environment? Why are your mitochondria shutting down? What is making them feel that they're under threat, that it's harsh, and we better hunker down and hibernate until this thing passes? It's obviously not the cold and the lack of food that the grizzly bears experience. This is something, we have a different harsh environment to them. And our harsh environment is a whole body inflammation due to unresolved continuing inflammation, as we have already said. So when you have this inflammation, it's a harsh environment for our cells. The cells shut down, the mitochondria shut down, and you don't produce energy. And you have this fatigue, which we've now discussed is not the same as tiredness, it's fatigue. So, in summary, a harsh environment for our all our bodies, all the cells in our bodies, the mitochondria shut down, we've got low energy production, and the body wants to hibernate and hunker down, and we feel fatigue. Okay. So, can we make our mitochondria, so we can wake the mitochondria up by taking away the harsh environment. So if we can take away this whole body inflammation, your mitochondria will wake up and you'll start producing more energy. But maybe you've only got a few small, scrawny mitochondria. Can we make them more? Imagine if you were to wake up your mitochondria and they were strong and robust and ready to go, how much energy you are going to have. You're going to be bursting with energy. And main steps to increasing your energy is 1, remove the harsh environment and get your mitochondria out of hibernation mode and into energy production mode. And there must be many of them. But how are you going to do this? What are you going to do if you're sitting out here now with suffering with long COVID? What can you go home and do? I had one colleague who was a physician, who was treating the COVID patients in the hospital, and he was working very hard, especially the beginning of this year. And he thought his tiredness was just due to hard work. But he had had COVID himself last year. And he said to me, I've just never come back from this. He says, I'm working, I'm battling to work, I'm forcing myself, the patients need me, I've got to do it. He says, but I am really, really battling. And I took him, I said, you're coming with me now. Took him to my office, to my rooms, sat him down and gave him a drip containing a substance called butyrate. We'll come to that now. So, how do we get rid of this harsh environment so that our mitochondria can wake up? And how do we make more mitochondria? There's certain things that you can do and certain things that I can do for you. But most of it is what you have to do for yourself. Now, if you have small and few and sleeping mitochondria, you need to get them big and many and working. Now, you might think I'm crazy. I tell you now, I want to do high intensity exercising. You know, I'm fatigued. I'm going to do exercising. You know what? All you have to do here is the maximum that you can do. And if the maximum that you can do is get out of bed and walk down to the lounge and you're finished, That's it. That's your maximum, not a maximum. There's no standard. You have, so long as you're doing your maximum. But doing it more than once a day. Don't just walk from the bedroom down to the TV room once a day. Maybe go back up to your room or come down again a few times in the day. This will make your mitochondria start producing more. Secondly, you have to change your diet slightly to eating vegetables. Not vegetarian, predominantly vegetables, and with a little bit of meat. We eat the wrong way. We eat meat with a little bit of vegetables. That's wrong. That's why we've got a lot of these problems. Vegetables. But now, you're eating the vegetables so that the germs in your stomach can produce butyrate. Doesn't help you eat the vegetables if you don't have the correct germs to work on them in your colon. So you've got to go down to the chemist and buy a good quality probiotic. But please, you are getting this probiotic, these germs, you're getting them to do a job to make butyrate from the vegetables. How can they do that if they're dead? So you go to the pharmacy and there's shelves, and one's even got 9 strains of it, but they're all dead. That's for guys with diarrhea. You need live probiotics. And we have designed a probiotic that doesn't dissolve in the stomach. The capsule doesn't dissolve in the stomach, goes through to the intestines, releases the germs there. But at some of the pharmacies, there is a make of probiotics in a fridge at the back of those are the ones. The ones in the fridge. Because they have to stay in the fridge because they are alive. Anything on the shelf is of no use to you at all. And here's my favorite one that everybody will do everything excepting this. If you expose your body to heat and cold, you build your immunity like fantastic, and you also reduce the inflammation in your body. So, everybody's favorite, the cold shower. As hot as possible, followed by a cold shower. Those guys in Finland, they've got something there where they sit in the sauna and they rush out and jump into the ice water. There's something in it. So take your cold shower. It doesn't have to be long. Have a nice hot shower. Just rinse yourself off a bit with cold water, as cold as you can get it, and not lukewarm, cold. And your body will produce more mitochondria. And then intermittent fasting. Every second day, a man should not eat for 18 hours and a woman for 16. As soon as you say that, people say, I can't go 18 hours without food. Yes, you can. If you have supper at 6 o'clock, when you wake up at 6 o'clock the next morning, 12 hours have gone. So another 6 hours, and you've got 18. Then you can eat lunch. So all it comes down to is skip breakfast. Every second day, or at least 3 or 4 times a week. That stress of the hunger makes your body, gives you more energy. And lots of people, because you make more mitochondria, a lot of people come back and they say, I'm doing intermittent fasting, and within days, I am rocket propelled. Intermittent fasting is important. Then, you've heard me use the word a little bit called butyrate. Now, butyrate is a substance made by the germs from the vegetable fiber in your colon, and it has the most amazing anti-inflammatory effects. And there are articles, anybody want them, just contact me, in the medical journals, where they say that butyrate stops interleukin-6 in its tracks. And we can give you butyrate in two ways. You can get capsules. You can't buy it in pharmacies. You're going to have to get it at somebody who compounds it. And we also give the patients butyrate intravenously. They come in there. My colleague, the physician, he was really flat, forcing himself to work. Gave him a drip on Thursday, gave him some butyrate on Saturday. He says, I'm rocket propelled. It's that quick because it reduces the inflammation in your body. Your mitochondria wake up. And if you're doing other little things to make your mitochondria more, you basically can be over the long COVID very quickly. Unfortunately, the butyrate is not freely available. It is actually, it's not scarce, but it has to be given to you by a doctor who's using a compounding pharmacist. Now, a compounding pharmacist is not your ordinary pharmacist. These are the guys working in the labs that actually make stuff for you that you ask them, and it has to be for a specific patient. That's a compounding pharmacist. They make that stuff for us, and we give it to the patients intravenously, and it changes their lives almost overnight. So, to go a little bit of movement. I should maybe change that slide and say, not exercising, movement. Just move, even though you don't feel like it. Drink the butyrate, and you will feel like moving. You will take to moving a lot easier. Then remember, where's butyrate made? In your colon. You need to take the germs, the probiotics, and eat more vegetables. Eat more vegetables. Bad news for the average South African male, but you can get into it. Eat more vegetables. Not, and I repeat, only vegetables. We're not talking vegetarian yet. You need the animal fat. Our forefathers, hunter-gatherers, they had their meat on the odd occasion. So that's where we come from. We weren't made to be vegetarians. So, but your emphasis must be on vegetables. Notice I'm not saying plants, because some people say, oh, we must have a plant-based diet. So they eat a lot of lettuce and salad and rocket. Useless. Useless, because the bugs in your colon can't use that fiber. You need the fiber from vegetables. And if you have the fiber from the vegetables, the probiotics, take your cold showers, do intermittent fasting, and use butyrate, and you'll be surprised how quickly you will feel better. Again, I come back to this high intensity interval training. Do as much as you can and stop. Later on, do as much as you can and stop. It's not pounding the sidewalks and running, and that is not just generally unhealthy. So, and especially in this situation. So the things that remember, that's all the things that you can do. Things that I can do as a doctor. I can reduce the inflammation. Anti-inflammatories will help you, but they are short-term because they're not addressing the problem. But just asking a doctor for an anti-inflammatory will make you feel better. Medication, butyrate, as I've already stated. Get butyrate. It's also called butyric acid, and if you studied in Afrikaans, it's called botersuur, butter acid. Okay. Butyrate can be taken as an oral capsule and in an IV drip. And if you live, I've got lots of butyrate. If you live far from me, and we courier this stuff all over the country, if you ask your doctor, is he prepared to put up the drip and put the butyrate in there and give you the butyrate. We will courier it to them, and you can just give it to you. And I send the meds to them, and they administer it to you. So this is one way around. You don't have to come to see me, because not everybody can, but ask your doctor to contact me and ask if I will send them the butyrate, and I'm more than happy to do it. So, and it takes 1 or 2 maybe drips, and maybe 5, but really after 2 drips you're feeling good. And I can teach you how to make your colon make more of your own butyrate. It's a little bit more involved. There are books out there, one by me, and you can find out how to make your colon make more butyrate. So you don't need to take it. You don't need it in a drip. Your body will be in a completely healthy state of producing its own butyrate, and you will feel like $1,000,000. My message to you is that if you do have long COVID, or if you do get long COVID sometime in the future, you can feel better quickly. Thank you.